Jan Rogers. I'm the Regional Economic Development Director for Eastern Idaho. My region covers 14 counties, so it's about a 200-mile from Montana to Utah. So I'm on the road quite a bit. My main regional communities are from Pocatello, Blackfoot, Rexburg, and Idaho Falls. So I'm on the road a lot working with the different communities. And from a regional perspective, one of the things that I think a lot of companies and or site consultants really like about having a regional organization is that, it's sort of a one call does all. And so we set up, we will set up the meetings in as many locations within a region as the company is interested in. And so a site visit for us, in fact, I just had a company not too long ago say, hey, we only have one day, but we want to look at the communities of Idaho Falls and Pocatello. And I said, not a problem. We're 45 minutes apart, 80 miles an hour on the freeway. We can be there in a minute, so we can handle it in one day. And we have 2 airports, so you can get, So it's really about helping the companies understand the assets and the opportunities within the region, particularly with smaller communities. So my background, I was born and raised in Dallas, so I have a major metro background. First 2/3 of my career was spent in that environment. But for the last 15 years, I've been in Idaho, which is really what I would consider to be a rural state. And so bringing that perspective, the major metro perspective for companies that have an expectation, and being able to translate that into a rural setting has been a real asset, I think. Actually, Southern Idaho, which is the south central part, decided that they wanted to put a regional group together. My background is marketing communications, and when the opportunity came up, I looked at the job description, and it perfectly fit. It was easily transferable skills, and so I decided to step into that game. And it is actually very much that for us. We had some very good economic development folks within the cities. What they were missing was the marketing. If a company stumbled upon us, like a Seastra Manufacturing out of California, or Solo Cup, we did a great job of converting them to a company within our region. But most people didn't know. Most people don't know about Idaho. Certainly didn't know about Southern Idaho. So that was our job. People ask me, what do you think your best success was? Was it Chobani? Was it Cliff Bar? Was it Dell, the first one we got? And I said, no. I said, I think my biggest accomplishment and our biggest accomplishment was bringing that region together as a team, working as a team. And because of that, the result of that is all of the business that we've been able to attract. The area is very small. It's less than 300,000 people for the entire region. Yet we have been, incredibly successful in attracting large consumer brand as well as business-to-business companies to that region in food. So, I got started that way. We came together. My goodness, our team, it didn't matter the city. Our team could almost finish each other's sentences at the end of the day. And because companies, since the recession, what I've noticed is you have to be competitive. The deal has to be competitive. You have to make sense from a business perspective. But what really has been tipping it is how they feel about you, how they feel about your community. Are you going to make good on the promises, beyond just the money? I always look at the end game. And for me, the end game is about the families and the communities. But each one of the regions in Idaho, there's 4 populated regions, it's 1.6 million total folks, has a different core industry. And so I was all things food. America's largest food basket was in southern Idaho. The diversity of food there is unmatched anywhere. But eastern Idaho, that's not what they're known for. They have 4 crops that they're very large in, but that's it. They're really known for science, research, and technology development, going way back. Philo T. Farnsworth is from Rigby, Idaho, and that's where television began. The first nuclear test reactor was in Idaho. First city in Idaho, in the world to be powered by nuclear was in Idaho. So there's it's a completely different core industry sector. So it's quite fascinating to learn about. And that's the journey I'm on right now, is learning what is Eastern Idaho, and it's quite the journey. I don't serve a community, I serve a region, okay? And there's a big difference. When you're serving a region, when you're serving multiple communities, as you can imagine, each community is sort of siloed. They have the best community they offer. It's my job to make sure that they are the best that they can be, but at the end of the day, it's really about the region. And in today's environment, what I'm finding is, and you hear this all the time, it's about talent. There's been a real reversal. Before, when you attracted business, the talent typically followed and joined the business. In today's environment, that's not so much so. You have to have the talent to start with. And if you don't have the talent, then the business is not going to follow. So typically what's happening now, what we're really looking, it's not much different other than we have to figure out how to attract talent just like we were attracting business. So now talent leads the business. We've had an enormous amount of organic growth in Eastern Idaho. Within just 4 companies, I can name 1,400 new jobs already this year. And that's a lot of jobs for a total population base of about 340,000 in a 200-mile area. So it really successful, but the problem, of course, is this talent issue. And so we're now looking at ways to market the region specifically for talent for that region. Not only do they have to have the technical and professional background to work in it, but we have to have the amenities. The problem is there is no urban, there's only one urban area in the entire state of Idaho, and it's Boise. And it's a perspective issue, right? When you're from Dallas, Boise is a suburban urban. It's like going into a Richardson or a Plano or, type situation. So attracting the new group of millennials that are now, have actually the larger portion of the workforce. Just last year, I think, they passed the boomers. Understanding that, but it's not just understanding millennial. It's understanding the millennials that would come and live and work in Eastern Idaho. So we're going to be doing a lot of research on just why millennials are there, why they're staying, what would make them leave, but only for Eastern Idaho, because it's a different environment. It is, without question, the best professional organization I have ever been a member of throughout my entire career. And I noticed the quality from the get-go. It actually focused, their conferences actually focused on things that really you could take back and use immediately. It gave you a point of view from what is happening across the nation, because we're not competing for business within our state. We're competing for business from everywhere, nationally as well as internationally. So this gave us an opportunity to learn best practices, see what others were doing, be able to take new ideas back and understand what was going on from a national perspective and how we fit into that. So I was all in from the beginning. We talked about that at our strategic planning, and I really think that this talent issue, and it could change. If we were to take another big deep dive into a recession, it could turn the whole bucket upside down again. But without this talent, without us figuring it out, and unfortunately for us, when I say us, the profession, there really isn't a lot of best practices out there on how do you do this, because our focus has always been on either attraction, expansion, or retention of business, not talent. And so now that talent is driving that, understanding how we make that curve so that we can help our businesses grow and expand as well, and we understanding. I've 2 or 3 conferences I've sat at this year with corporate real estate and site consultants. If you do not have the talent base that they're looking for, they won't even consider your community. And so that's a really a big challenge, because it's a shift from workforce, which I say we need to get out of our vernacular completely, because it sounds like workhorse to a millennial. We really need to talk about it in terms of talent. But that's going to be a challenge, and I've heard a number of EDO, others talk about, now we have to get into the workforce business. Dave McElinden, he's still, in fact, he's retiring this year, but he was with the city of Twin Falls, and one of the most brilliant deal makers I think I've ever worked with. We have a couple of really strong deal makers in our region, in the Southern Idaho region, and he really mentored me through. He helped me with the language when I was interviewing for the position. I didn't know what BRIE meant, but he started the mentorship even before I applied for the job, and continued that for many years. So, yeah, a great mentor. Well, again, it goes back to the end game, and we don't really, we're really trying to pull away from quality of life, because actually you can't define it. That is an individual. It's different for everyone. So we're really talking about quality of place, and the quality of place you can define. And if we can define that well, then folks that are looking at opportunities in our region can look at our quality of place and see if that matches their quality of life. For us, it's about the people. That is the focus. It's always been the focus. It's not about the numbers. It's about creating opportunities for the families that live and work in our region, in our community, in our state. And that is the end game. Well, technology has streamlined everyone's life, right? But the difference in today for economic developers coming in is understanding how that technology is being used. Because again, when I'm talking about the fact that you're not even going to get a look if you don't have the talent pool there. We did a major, it was Click Bar. We were competing for that business, and had to fill out an RFI that was like 80 pages long. And the site consultant said, okay, I need this filled out in detail, but don't bother with the labor. We'll handle the labor. So some of the challenges that we're having, that I'm seeing, and I'm not sure how to fix this yet, is if we don't have any control over that message because they're pulling the data on labor from many sources. Again, it's technology. Before, we provided all of that information. And when we stopped doing it through paper, we were doing it electronically, we were still providing the information, particularly on the labor and that type of data. That is not the case today. So how do you influence, that decision is, it's harder now, particularly since really the number one question is talent. And if you have no control over that data because, when I say no control, that is happening with corporate real estate and site consultants. Companies, though, do have their own, in fact, many companies that we've worked with that don't use a site consultant will use them for that purpose. And it's about the talent. Be flexible. Look for new trends. I think one of the things that I hope that I've tried to do, and I'm trying to instill in the folks that I'm mentoring at this point back in Idaho, is understand that the dynamics are changing and have changed, and be able to pivot. Keep going down the same road that you've been going down for the last 5 years is not going to keep you successful. You have to be flexible. You have to understand. You have to read what's happening in the environment and be able to pivot. And that's really quickly. If you don't, you will be left behind. It's all about, for me, again, the end game. And it's about, you can talk about matrices all day long. And honestly, I probably shouldn't say this on camera, but I don't count how many jobs have been created or how many companies we've brought in. And we've done, I had 1 year where we captured 7 companies, almost $800 million in CapEx, nearly 5,000 jobs. And I'm talking about, again, a region that's less than 300,000 people. That's a big number for anybody. But for me, it wasn't about that. It was about all of the opportunity. If you do it for the right reasons, it becomes very addictive. And it's not about you. It's about the people that that ultimately you're working for. And if you keep your eye on that ball, it is my feeling that you will continue to be successful. And this job becomes so addictive when you're winning and you're making that possible, that you might stay in it longer than you had planned, which is what's happening with me today. I think from a professional perspective, and for the profession itself, we need to make sure that we are staying up with technology, with the new trends, understanding the new generation that's coming in and the generation behind it. I think that's critically important. There is a lot of gray hair in our business, and when you come to the conferences, you see that. We need to get more young people involved. We need to get their passion, and they're passionate about helping others. They're passionate about wanting to make a difference, and that's what economic development professionals do. They actually make a difference. They make a difference in the communities. They make a difference in the people that live in those communities. And if you can find that kind of passion, if you have that kind of passion, you want to make that kind of difference, this is the profession you should be in. Because it's a very satisfying thing when you're able to, and you can see the results of your work. You're partnering, you've made a difference.